WNYC's journalism and storytelling is heard by millions of passionate listeners. Sponsors of WNYC gain our listeners' attention and their respect. Learn more about how your organization can support WNYC at sponsorship.wnyc.org.
I'm Stephen Nesson, a transit reporter here at Gothamist and WNYC. It seems like every week there is breaking news about transit in the city that affects how we all get around, on subways, roads, and so much more. Keep up with the latest by listening to On the Way, Thursdays on All Things Considered, and sign up for our weekly newsletter at wnyc.org/newsletters.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Simon Raymond was the bassist for the legendary band the Cocteau Twins, who founded the record label Bella Union. He also dealt with a brain tumor that damaged his hearing. He writes about his life in his new memoir, In One Ear. On the next All of It, he joins us to discuss. Plus, we'll talk about the reopening of the Studio Museum in Harlem. I'm Allison Stewart. Join us for All of It, weekdays at noon on WNYC.
It is 6:51 and you're listening to Morning Edition on WNYC. Marketplace Morning Report is next, and then later on Morning Edition, researchers have uncovered new details about a type of cybercrime in which hackers help criminals hijack actual cargo ships.
It's literally a $35 billion industry. That's the estimated losses from cargo theft overall.
These huge sums dwarf other forms of cybercrime, such as ransomware. We'll have more on that in about 15 minutes. Upper 30s with partly cloudy skies right now. Mostly sunny today and 45 for a high with winds gusting to 34 miles an hour. Clear and cold tonight, mid-30s.
After the day to night comes the day to dawn.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Yubico, makers of the YubiKey. YubiKey helps protect important digital applications and services. YubiKey, still undefeated, the original passkey. More at yubico.com.
From Marketplace, I'm Sabri Benishore, in for David Brancaccio. For a month and a half, anyone trying to understand the U.S. economy has been flying a little blind. The 43-day government shutdown caused a data shutdown. Tons of information about GDP, employment, lots of other items about nooks and crannies of the U.S. economy were not released or even collected sometimes. That is starting to turn around, though, as the government reopens. Tomorrow, we will allegedly get data about the country's imports and exports from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Still possible it might get delayed, but when we finally do get those numbers, they will shed some light on the impacts of some of the president's tariffs. Marketplace's Carla Javier has that.
Until recently, this isn't data Tyler Schipper at the University of St. Thomas paid all that much attention to. But lately, with tariffs in the news,
import prices have been one of the reports that people have been going to. And likewise, that's one of the probably top 2 or 3 reports that I am waiting to see for the backlog.
The BLS data measures import prices before tariffs are applied. That can point to who might be absorbing the cost of the import taxes. If import prices go up, Schipper says,
that seems to suggest that foreign exporters are not actually doing much cost sharing, that they are passing most of the prices of tariffs on to the U.S.
Import prices also affect consumers, says Ryan Monarch at Syracuse University.
10% of all their expenditures are on imported products. And so sometimes import prices will be something that is moving overall inflation numbers around.
Missing the September import data during the shutdown has made it harder to understand what's going on, says Jason Miller at Michigan State University. He gives the example of metal products, which were hit with steep tariff increases in August.
We don't have a sense yet of how that has been met by exporters, to the U.S. in terms of potentially lowering prices or not to help offset those things.
Miller says BLS will be able to catch up on the import price data it's missed because companies keep records of the prices they paid. I'm Carla Javier for Marketplace.
Those flight restrictions imposed during the shutdown, they are over. The Federal Administration is lifting them as of 6 a.m. Eastern today, the Federal Aviation Administration. 40 major U.S. airports and more than 5 million travelers were affected by delays and cancellations. Meanwhile, the Trump administration is dropping a Biden-era plan to require airlines to compensate travelers for major flight disruptions. All right, let's do the numbers. Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ futures are all up in the 1 to 0.5% range. Dow futures up just a hair, 13 points. The yield on the 10-year Treasury is 4.122%.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Mercury. Mercury is a fintech that helps entrepreneurs do more with their money. They offer banking, credit cards, invoicing, and more all in one place. Learn more at Mercury.com. And by Wealth Enhancement, providing its wealth blueprint, planning for retirement and investing through national advisors. More information at wealthenhancement.com/build.
U.S. subsidies for electric vehicles are on their way out. On the other side of the world, China continues to support its EV industry and has been for a while. It's poured more than $200 billion into the sector since 2009, and it's the biggest market in the world for EVs. But having ascended so high, the air is getting a little thin. The country now finds itself with an oversupply of EVs and EV makers. Competition is cutthroat. Profit margins are thin or non-existent. And as the Chinese EV supply spills over into the rest of the world, some auto industries see it as a threat. Some consumers see it as an opportunity. Joining us to talk it over is Ilaria Mazzocco, Senior Fellow at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So China has a tsunami-size supply of electric vehicles. How big of a glut are we talking about?
It's kind of hard to know. If you look at the Chinese market, it's become much larger than anybody expected, right? And that is where today most electric vehicles are being sold. However, we are seeing an increasing amount of exports from China, and some of that is probably due to this glut that we're talking about, right? Over competition in China, diminishing margins. There's been a price war that's gone on now for years, and some companies aren't even making profits.
How did China get to this point? Why is it swimming in EVs? Why did its industry ascend so rapidly?
I think it's really a combination of different factors, right? So you had the Chinese government stepping in and providing pretty comprehensive support, both for suppliers, but also for consumers. You had really entrepreneurial companies like BYD that were battery makers before they became car makers. And then you had really the perfect timing. The technology was mature enough, but at the same time, there wasn't that much competition. And I think ultimately, that enabled a lot of competition within China because a lot of companies decided to sort of step in to produce more EVs. And it turns out consumers really like them.
China sounds like it's kind of supporting a whole industry and eventually letting it consolidate. Is that something the U.S. should be learning from?
I think what China's experience with industrial policy does teach the U.S. is that it's important to have an ecosystem. Having a broader manufacturing, innovation ecosystem, having more training, educational investment, all those things can all be really helpful.
By shutting Chinese EVs out, even if they do have some, subsidization behind them, is that a loss for U.S. consumers?
Right. And I think, actually, even moving beyond that, a lot of the components are also made by China. It's not necessarily just the car, but it's also, what about the machinery that makes the battery? Or what about the IP to extract the critical minerals? How much of that can be Chinese? And I think the rest of the world, the answer is a lot more of it can be Chinese than the United States, which is putting the U.S. in sort of a difficult or different position compared to other countries.
Ilaria Mazzocco is a senior fellow with the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
In New York, I'm Sabri Ben-Achour with the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.
WNYC is supported by Reunions, a new musical adaptation based on plays by J.M. Barrie and the Quintero brothers, now through December 14th at New York City Center Stage 2. Tickets at nycitycenter.org.
This message is for everyone.